This is the Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast with Nick Cattles.
Greg Bedard Patriots Podcast. John Zannis filling in for Nick Cattles, who will be back next week. I guarantee you that. Greg, we're going to start with the Bills, and we'll move forward, talk a little Jags or whatever. I don't think there's much of a preview here to be had. No. It's really what we've seen, not just against Buffalo, but the last 2 weeks that has Patriots fans kind of questioning the team's identity. It's amazing. 2 weeks ago, we were booking tickets, for a Brady versus Belichick Super Bowl. And now everyone's like, okay, hey, it was a good season anyway. They'll be one and done in the playoffs if they get there. So it's amazing the roller coaster we've gone on, but I think everybody's freaked out over what we saw both from an effort and execution standpoint the last 2 weeks. Going down big to Indy early and then just basically doing nothing right against Buffalo early in that game as well. You've looked at the film, a zillion times by now. What struck you the most? Yeah. What struck you the most here and what jumped out? And again, to me, it's really more how they came out as much as, what they did during the game.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most disturbing thing was just the collective lack of punchback in this game to start a game again. You could somewhat excuse the Colts game coming off a bye, even though the Colts are coming off a bye. But the first time the Patriots had really been in that sort of environment in almost basically 2 years. Like a guy like Kyle Duggar had never played in a place like that where it's partisan for the home team and indoors and the game's going away from you. You're falling behind 24-0. But at least they showed fight. They came back. They made it a game at the end. And you were like, okay, it's a one-off. The Patriots are going to understand that now they have no margin for error. Now the Buffalo game is now the de facto AFC East championship. And so you figured they would come out and be ready to go. And instead, it was a continuation of the Colts game. I mean, to fall behind a collective 44-7 in those two games, your two most important games of the season, really, with exactly what's on the line. Basically, anything is in your control. And for them to fall behind like that in the first halves of both games is just hugely disappointing. It's hugely puzzling. And that goes even for internally, John, talking to people around the team, they're just like, they're as spooked as anybody else. Like, okay, one off, you can understand. But to do it again, and I think the most disturbing thing for me as far as the team goes, and even though they had failures in all three areas, look, the offense, you can scream to your blue in the face about being more aggressive and let Mac Jones cook and all that stuff. I don't know how much more you need to see that to understand that the coaches, and this includes Bill Belichick, who sees this team every day in practice, say that's not the path for this team. It's not the path for Mac Jones. It's not the path for the receivers. It's not the best path. The most disturbing thing is the defense. The defense to come out and just have horrible rush discipline, horrible coverage, lack of cohesiveness where nobody's helping each other out. No one's hitting anybody, playing basically a flag football game when Buffalo wants to play that way. They want to play 7-on-7. Let's go. Let's play 7-on-7. No one touches anybody. That's their game. And for the Patriots just to do nothing, Matthew Judon on a complete no-show in the biggest game of his Patriots career. It's completely puzzling. It makes you rethink everything. And John, not to say I somewhat told you so, but, the Titans game, they won by 23 points. And I was one of the lone guys saying, like, sorry, I have more questions than answers about this team after that. Like, namely, why was it a one-score game midway through the fourth quarter against Ryan Tannehill and a bunch of backups? And everybody wanted to talk about how great Mac Jones was and how they won by 23 points. Now you know. Now you know why this team is in trouble right now. And anything can happen in these last two games. I'm not ruling anything out.
No doubt about it. But the thing you said earlier, I want to follow. You said, everyone says, let Mac do this and blah, blah, blah. And then they're disappointed when not. I think people would would be less concerned if they knew what this team was. Like, fine, they're not that, but what are they? I think they want to be 2018, smash mouth, run the ball down your throat, or like the team 2018 evolved into, and then win it with defense. But this team it would only work if the defense was playing at an elite level, and they're not. And there's been issues on and off throughout the year that you keep kind of pointing out, whether it's, linebacker depth or, depth in the secondary or whatever that is. A lot of things on the defense are getting exposed, and the pass rush that was getting home early in the season is not getting home of late. As you said, Judon, not just bad this game, bad just non-factor the last several weeks. So what are they?
Last 4 games. Yep.
Yeah. And it's not just sacks, and the pressures are just down. He's just not there. You're not hearing his name called a lot. So what are they defensively and offensively? What's the identity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think they know, and that's the problem.
It's late to not know. That's the problem.
Yeah, right. It is. And look, the best case scenarios that you're hoping for is that it's 2018 again, which is, look, they had the disappointing loss down in Miami on the kickoff return. We know that was a fluke, but the kickoff return is sort of like Jakob Johnson's punt block, almost the same sort of thing. And then they went to Pittsburgh, and I think they lost 14-7. It was low scoring game. I remember Brady being really frustrated in that game. And when did the Patriots ever lose back-to-back December games? And we were all horrified. We didn't know what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden after that, the coaches said, you know what? We're going to stop throwing the ball so much. We're going to start running the ball, using our offensive line. We're going to rely on our defense. And that's the way they won the Super Bowl. I mean, look, Brady was heroic in the fourth quarter against KC in the AFC Championship game. We understand that. But largely how they were constructed or how they went forward was the running game and defense. The defense was the standout in the Super Bowl against the Rams, completely shut that team down. And the problem is that they're a long ways from that team. They did it in 2018, 2019, they fell down the stretch. The defense let the team down. We thought it was going to be the strength. Now you're wondering, is this more like 2019? And that's what it looks like. I mean, because look, John, as much as you want to criticize the offense, and if you want to look at Mac Jones's stats, and everybody knows how I feel about stats and the correlation to how a quarterback plays in the game, but I thought the offense did some things in this game. They did have, as opposed to the defense. I mean, the offense is out there to score points. They scored a touchdown in the first half. Then they come out in their first 2 drives of the second half. They go 75 yards for a touchdown, 70 yards for a touchdown. So they figured things out. Okay, this is not a well-oiled offense. We understand that. But when they start to figure things out, now it's on the offense had 3 freaking possessions in the second half, and one of them came with 2:30 left when the game was over. That's on the defense. And now the big question is, can the defense get it together? Do they even have the talent to do that? And against some teams, yeah, they can do that. Against a lot of the teams they're going to face in the playoffs, I don't know if they can, but that's going to be the real unit that's under scrutiny. It should be under scrutiny. Stop talking about the offense. Talk about the defense. These 14, 16 play drives, it's ridiculous.
Right.
And it needs to stop.
Yeah, but nobody likes talking about the defense. Everyone wants to know what's going on with Mac. So I'll ask you were critical in some better games. How did you grade him out overall in this game? And at what point do we start to get back to that age-old conversation we have with the Patriots, or we had last year, which is it the quarterback or is it the weapons?
Mac in this game, I had him for 7+ plays. I had him for 14- plays, which is right up there with his worst game.
With his worst games, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
a lot of
I think that was the
misfires.
Tennessee game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw Mac who, at times he played well. About the middle portion of the game, he played well. He had some of his worst throws on the final drive, and I know that's desperation time. The interception, he was just trying to make a play, threw in the triple coverage, but he missed some plays. Probably the thing that's been most alarming to me of late is that there have been a few big plays to Jacoby Myers down the middle of the field that if Mac's a little bit more patient and hangs in the pocket a little bit longer, they can make those, and instead he's taking the check down. Right. The thing that's disturbing about this game and led to a lot of questions about the rookie wall and this and that, I don't think it's the rookie wall. I think it's just, his mechanics, for whatever reason, got disjointed in this game. His upper body and his lower body were disjointed. And, think about in baseball terms, you hear about a pitcher or somebody who their front shoulder flies open. all of a sudden either you pull the ball or the ball sails on you. And I thought the ball sailed on him a lot in this game. That's something that can be corrected, but you worry about it, how it shows up under pressure. I thought he, for this game, I thought he was fine largely, that they could have won with this version of Mac, but that's only if they get good defense. If they don't get good defense, then you need Super Mac. And to me, that's just unrealistic as a rookie.
Sure. But what about the guys around him as well? Like Mac was, as you said, off the mark, uncharacteristically so, missing a ton of throws. But are you at any point going to start getting a little bit worried that, like, okay, we're not getting enough out of these guys?
I mean,
again,
I think
it's
a lot
easy
of
to
them
point
are
to the box
ordinary.
score, but when you're just seeing ordinary, what comes? How many times every Patriots team, I feel like it's gotten blown up at some point or another during the year. It's they don't have enough guys who can make plays when plays need to happen a lot of times. And
I think a constant criticism of mine, and it continues and it will continue into the offseason, and you'll hear me talking about it leading up to the draft and free agency. They need a real deal slot receiver that can get open very quickly against any type of coverage on third down, where Mac Jones is like, all right, I got that guy. And if you have that guy opposite Hunter Henry, now all of a sudden you're cooking with gas inside. Jacoby Myers, love him, but he's not a slot receiver. He's just, he's a number 3 or 4, a guy you throw in 3 or 4 wide receiver sets. That, if attention is being divided sort of to another asset, like a good slot receiver, then he pops over him for some plays.
They're lucky to have had him the last couple of years because he's been relatively reliable, but they still need an upgrade. Both things can be true.
And I think, look, they weren't that talented to begin with. They missed Aguilar in this game. I think he would have, sort of made the Bills respect the passing game a little bit more. I think Kendrick Bourne, he was a complete non-factor in this game. COVID must have been an issue for him all week. And then you also have to talk about that, the weather conditions that I was worried coming in when I saw 11-mile-an-hour winds, gusts up to 30. I thought the wind was a factor in the game. It was coming from the lighthouse end to the other end. And the Patriots, I think I looked at it, I think Mac had 9 pass attempts going towards the lighthouse into the wind. I think he had like 21 going with the wind. So that just tells you it's a factor. And it was a split in, I know it got out of hand a little bit, in the fourth quarter. But in the first 2 quarters, it was like 4 and 9 in terms of attempts. So that tells you the coaches were cognizant of that. And I think when wind is an issue, then the outside receivers have a tougher time getting the ball, like, Kendrick Bourne. And I think the Bills paid a lot of attention to Hunter Henry. Jonnu Smith was a non-factor in the game. I don't think he factored in very much in general as far as running routes. But, to me, and then there's the whole running back thing. I mean, James White was a nice guy to have for a rookie quarterback who was over reliable. And I love Brandon Bolden and all, and he does make plays. But you need somebody who's going to make somebody miss, a lot of the times. And you just wish, like, put JJ Taylor in there. Like, let's just get a few looks. You can't bury the kid. So the Patriots are on both sides of the ball. They're not making as much. They're not making big plays, and they are very limited. And when that happens, I mean, the defense isn't getting that many sacks. They didn't have any sacks against Josh Allen. They didn't have an interception. They didn't have a turnover. They don't get that stuff. It's a very narrow path to victory for this team.
Yeah. And again, it's not like you mentioned JJ Taylor, but you do have Belichick does run into this issue of reliability versus ability and which one he favors, and, loves his old reliable guys. So yeah, Bolden's in there, but he's not making guys miss. If he's got a tackler in front of him and the sticks are 2 yards ahead, he's going down most likely. So, I mean, it's that's one of the issues you have. We've talked about him a ton. We talked about what we didn't like already, but you've focused in on 3 things that really, worried you about this game. What are those?
3 things that worry me most. Number 1, the linebackers other than Van Noy in this game, all of them. I mean, Jamie Collins had a chance to make that 4th and 1 play. Him and J.C. Jackson, when Josh Allen got outside, and, I'm going to channel Sean McDermott here. Let's not give Josh Allen too much credit. I mean, let's also talk about how, that's a play they need to make. Jamie Collins got faked out by a quarterback. I
Who
don't care how athletic the guy
Which
is.
guy do you want there rather than
Yeah.
Jamie Collins? Jamie Collins is exactly the guy you want in that situation, and he's got to make that play.
Yeah,
He's the
and
best athlete
maybe
they
he's
have
not.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he's not that guy anymore, and that spells doom for the rest of the season. But I mean, I think a theme in this game was that Brian Daboll, the former Patriots assistant, he's the offensive coordinator up in Buffalo, knew exactly what the Patriots were going to do. It's a lot of the stuff that we talked about all season, which is I'm waiting for a team to come out and spread the Patriots out and take advantage of their lack of speed on defense and mix in some runs. And that's exactly what Buffalo did. They seem to, if they didn't have something readily available down the field, it was like, just check it down to the running backs. The Hightower and Bentley can't get there. They're too slow. And then it was Collins, and then it was this person and that person, and they could not match up at all. And they're gonna, in a rematch, they're gonna have to make serious changes there. Play a lot of defensive backs because they can't play the linebackers again. Number two that worried me, the pressure on QB. With apologies to other Patriots writers out there, including Evan Lazar from CLNS, who we've had on the podcast. He's written for BSJ before. I know he had like a 40% rate of pressure in this game, and you can make that argument that it was there if you're using a very high bar for what pressure is. When I watched it, I didn't see it. I didn't think a lot of it was effective pressure. I thought a lot of times Josh Allen wasn't bothered by it and moved not because of rush, but to make a play. And because the Patriots gave him about 10 yards to run and make a play and do whatever he wanted. So I only had the pressure rate at 21%. And that is not good enough. I don't care what quarterback you're playing in this league. You do that, you're going to get ripped. And then we talked about it before, max mechanics. That was the first time this year where I was like, okay, the rookie's going through something right now, and it's it's a throwing funk to me. I don't think it's a rookie wall; it's a throwing funk, and he's got to get that changed. And I do think the weather has factored into that. I think that he's been like, all right, well, I need to put a little bit more into it because of the wind or what have you. And I think it's gotten him disjointed. He's not used to it growing up in Jacksonville, playing at Alabama. He's not used to having to all of a sudden gear up. So that's something he's going to have to adjust to. And the things I'm confident in after the Bills game, a little bit of a shorter list, but the Patriots will not play like that against the Bills, John. I think that, and this is not to sound like a Patriots honk. Everybody knows that I'm not, but not to sound like, yeah, this is totally according to Belichick's plan. That I think the weather set them up for failure in this game, but could set them up for success if they meet again, because they were going to get this ass whooping at some point by the Bills. The Bills have probably sat on this game plan since the offseason, had it ready since midseason. These two games, they know the AFC East was going to come down to these games, and luckily for them, the weather negated it. And for the Bills, so the Bills could hold that. They unleashed it in Foxborough. Now the Patriots have all the film, just like I watched ad nauseum this week. I wanted to vomit into my wastebasket watching it. But they're just going to be like, well, they're not going to rush like this again. They're going to have different personnel. They're going to cover differently. They're going to have a much better plan. So I feel much better about that. Damian Harris, incredible in this game. That the Bills were keying on him, and there wasn't much of a passing game to keep them off balance. For him to still do what he did gives me a lot of confidence. I thought the hammy looked all right, but I do think he has another level to go to. I think he wasn't quite 100% in this game. And, look, I'm confident that, the veteran leadership is going to snap this locker room into place. But my only question, and I think it's a big question looming over this team in the last two games in terms of how they finish, is with all the new additions this offseason, from a lot of draft picks who play, a lot of free agents, guys who haven't been here or aren't real true Patriots yet, who's the dominant voice in there? Is it Devin McCourty? Is it Matthew Slater? Is it David Andrews? Or, is it Trent Brown, Matthew Judon, Christian Barmore? These guys, Jalen Mills, is the guys who don't really know what they're doing and don't know how to win like the Patriots. So I think I am confident that the leaders, now that push has come to shove, will do the deed, but we'll see.
All right. Well, let's segue a little bit to this weekend. And again, this is a game where a lot of people are looking past. But, as we've seen with the Patriots, you can't necessarily look past any opponent. We did get a little comfortable during the 7-game win streak. But anything about Jacksonville here that worries you even a tad in this game, as far as the Patriots are concerned? Does this have a chance of is this going to be the second Jets game, or is this going to be the Houston game? What are they going to do against a clearly inferior opponent?
Yeah, Jacksonville is having so many COVID issues at this point. I think they have 23 guys on the list that you're not even sure. I think I saw one report today that they have 33 guys healthy on the active roster right now. So it shouldn't be much of a problem. I would say, where I worry, I want to see them do a little bit better against an athletic quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. I think he will press them on the edges a little bit, so that will be helpful. I think their cornerback play is decent. So I really want to see the defense play much tighter, which I think they will. And I won't really care on Sunday when they do it, because it's the Jaguars and it's a rookie quarterback who is in a terrible situation. But and I want to see the offense hit some shots down the field. I want to see them get everybody involved, guys who haven't touched the ball in a long time. Spread it around, get everybody feeling a little bit better, because, that Dolphins game the next week is going to be tough, and it's going to be very important, and they need to get going in the right direction quickly, or else, I don't even know if they're sure to making the playoffs. If they split these final 2 games, I mean, you think Vegas and the Dolphins are going to lose one, but if they don't, I don't know. Patriots are in a tough spot. I like them like 34-10, somewhere in that range, and and then the season really starts with, there will be no bye week around here if they make the playoffs, and so Miami's going to be a playoff game. They flunked the other 2 playoff games. Let's see if they answer the bell in a tough environment. There will be more Patriots fans there, but good luck with the heat and humidity, and we'll see.
We will see. Let's get to our Boston Sports Journal member question of the day. This comes from R. Malloy. R. Malloy?
Yep.
Do you know R?
I know his questions.
You know his questions. Happy New Year, Greg. If the Patriots clinch the playoffs this week, and actually first let me tell everybody, you got to check out BSJ $39.99, the annual plan. Not only top-notch analysis of all Boston pro sports, but if you're a Patriots junkie and you're listening to this podcast, you probably are. BSJ membership gives you a ton of video analysis that Greg does on the coach's film and direct access to him only in weekly chats. The only way you can get that is to subscribe today. So if you haven't, do so heading into the new year. $39.99 annual plan. You can't beat that. Again, R. Malloy, Happy New Year, Greg. If the Patriots clinch the playoffs this week, do you think they will treat the following week as a bye, because they may have Saturday game on wildcard weekend and don't want a short week in order to get physically ready for either Tennessee or Cincinnati, presumably?
First of all, I don't think they're gonna. Will they treat next week as a bye week? So that would mean the Miami game.
Will they just rest everybody for Miami if they make the playoffs this week?
Hell no. This team is not good enough to. No. They might spot rest a guy or two. If Judon is really beat up, which might explain his play over the last month or what have you, then yeah. But outside of that, this team needs to play better. I mean, what the hell have they proven? Even against Jacksonville, what have they proven? What have they earned in terms of time off? It's only spot rest for anybody who really needs to get healthy. Other than that, screw that. This team needs to play. They need to play as much as possible. They need to play well to get going on, any type of role going into the playoffs.
So no. That
would be a big no.
Again, the thing with me on that one is it's they literally, again, we said it during this podcast, we're heading into the final 2 games of the season, and you still don't really know what the team does super well and who they are and what they're going to be and what they need to do. As you said, the 2018 team came into its identity a little bit late. Best case scenario, that's what it is. But again, right, you got to look at this weekend at the very least as a let's get right. Let's really fine tune some things here. Put a whoop into Jacksonville and go out and be competitive against Miami headed into the playoffs, because whoever they play at this point, it's probably going to be on the road and it's probably going to be challenging. That's it for the Greg Bedard. Greg, any final thoughts before we wrap?
No, just looking back at, on that 2018 thing. I mean, they went into their last game against the Jets, and I don't think they had much to prove in that game. And, Tom Brady played the whole game, threw 4 touchdown passes. Sony Michel got 14 carries. I mean, Rob Gronkowski got catches. I mean, if those guys didn't earn rest or what have you,
Right.
then, nobody is. So, yeah, I don't think it enters. They have not nearly earned any type of day off, and just wanted to wish everybody including yourself, John, and the family. I'm sure you guys are partying it up tonight. Everybody,
Oh, yeah.
a happy, healthy. Everybody stay healthy, and help us endure this little thing that we're going through again, and so that we can have lots of sports very soon, uninterrupted.
Sports and normal stuff and the things that we all
Yep.
like doing. I want to give a special shout out to all the listeners of the Greg Bedard Patriots podcast as well. The show has now, it's in year 2, but it's grown immeasurably year over year. The amount of both viewers we have on the CLNS Media YouTube channels and the amount of downloads, and you people who are listening to it on a weekly basis, we thank you. Keep it coming. If you want to help us out, again, subscribe, like, rate, review, all of that stuff. And how about for this? Tell a friend, someone who doesn't listen to it, recommend the podcast to them. Let them know that this is the best Patriots, that Nick and Greg here twice a week, the best Patriots coverage in town, bar none. It's not even close. Thanks again for listening, guys. Happy New Year.